This is ContactTalkRadio.com. Consciousness in action. And you are taking action into your consciousness by tuning into Contact Talk Radio.
And on TuneIn.com, Ping.fm, and UpSnap Mobile.
Contact Talk Radio.
When was the last time you felt inspired? Are you ready to take your passions to make a difference while living a life you truly love? Your host, Katana Abbott, who is a life and legacy wealth coach and certified financial planner, searches the world to bring you experts in the field of personal and professional growth, wealth creation, and mind, body, and spirit. So grab a cup of coffee and take that quantum leap you've been waiting for. Smart Women Talk Radio, the link to live with purpose, passion, and prosperity.
Hello, everyone. This is Katana Abbott, and I want to welcome you all to Smart Women Talk, where I search the world for smart women and a few good men, including best-selling authors, thought leaders, and change agents who are on that leading edge. So we have topics like money, business, health, inspiration, and the metaphysical. I've been wanting to do this show for a long, long time, and I'm really doing this show for everyone, and I'm bringing some really special guests. And I want to tell you why, because over the next 2 decades, $70 trillion, that's a lot of money, is going to be transferred to the next generation. And without careful planning and stewardship, a hard-earned fortune can easily disappear within a generation or two. And we're referring to this idea, it's a proverb that many of us may have heard called shirt sleeves to shirt sleeves in 3 generations. So you may have heard it, but not be sure what it means. But it's basically the first generation works in the fields. That's why they have shirts and not a suit on. They work hard. They build up a fortune by living frugally and saving. So the second generation comes into the family and they go to the university. They move into beautiful homes. They have a wonderful life. The third generation is numerous now. And they grow up in luxury, sometimes a sense of entitlement, but not always. It might just be they don't understand the source of the wealth and they live off the money. And what ends up happening then, the fate of the fourth generation is to find itself back doing manual labor. Now, all of us have seen things like this. It could be friends or family, but very, very big in the news was that almost 80% of NFL players go broke within 2 years after their career ends. And then with basketball players, that number is 60% after 5 years. And then we can think of all those celebrities that have ended up on drugs, going bankrupt. I mean, we hear the stories all the time, and it's just so sad because it really doesn't need to be the case. You don't even need to have a lot of money, because I know a lot of people listening are going, how does this relate to me? I want to just give you a quick story of Osella McCarthy. She was a woman who died of cancer at 91 in 1999, but she was able to save, working hard as a washerwoman, $250,000 during her lifetime. And she left a bequest of $150,000 for student scholarships at the University of Southern Mississippi. It was the largest gift from an African-American, and it made the news in 1995. And there was this just outpouring of affection. So she was invited to the White House. She was asked to carry the Olympic torch and given an honorary doctorate by Harvard University. Ted Turner was so moved by McCarthy's generosity that he pledged to give $1 billion of his fortune to the United Nations. So all of us have the opportunity to be good stewards to the money that comes and goes in our lives. And this is why I'm so excited to be learning from a family that has managed to preserve and grow their family legacy into the third generation and fourth generation. We'll be learning about that. So today we're going to be talking with Phillip and Amanda Fisher. And Amanda is Philip's daughter. We're going to be talking about creating a lasting legacy, how to prepare the next generation to be wealth creators, and why legacy begins in the heart. So let me tell you about our two guests. Phillip Fisher is the founder of Mission Throttle, a firm that leads cultural change to accelerate the evolution of philanthropy. As a capitalist and philanthropist, he is leading sustainable strategies to connect, collaborate, and deploy effective market-driven solutions to create community capital, human resources, and impact. Mr. Fisher's experiences span both for-impact and for-profit organizations. He's a community advocate for social change and is the chairman of the Fisher Group, the chair emeritus of the Max M. and Marjorie S. Fisher Foundation, and the Detroit Symphony Orchestra. He and his wife, Lauren, are parents of 5 incredible children and 2 grandchildren. And one of those wonderful, brilliant children is here today. That's Amanda Fisher. And she is an avid Detroit philanthropist and residential real estate broker in Birmingham. And we'll learn more about that in a moment. She was born and raised in the Metro Detroit area. Amanda has an unwavering passion for helping families who are living in southeastern Michigan. Amanda has numerous philanthropic passions, including leadership roles for organizations like Child Safe, Starfish Family Services, Detroit Jewish News Foundation, and the Council for Michigan Foundation. And Amanda is a trustee now of the Max M. and Marjorie S. Fisher Foundation, where she also serves on committees for impact investing and early childhood development. Amanda's growing social justice interest, as well as her growing professional success, continues to be fueled by her mission to help Detroit families succeed. And now, not only now, but she'll be doing that for many more years to come. So I'm so excited to have you both here. We've been talking about this for a long, long time, and here we are. And I'm excited because I have a connection to your family through my husband, Mark Abbott, who's been with the Detroit Symphony Orchestra now for almost 40 years as a French horn. And Philip, I have to say that when you came to the Detroit Symphony Orchestra as our chair, we were going through such a difficult time. And with Ann Parson and you at the helm, we created you, and I say we because I feel involved in this one DSO. And that was just part of the magic that happens when you get someone with such a big heart who can make a difference. And so I really want to thank you.
Thank you.
For what you did in Detroit to help us through that. And I know other organizations too, because I know Lauren was helping with the DIA, and it's important for all of us to be involved in our community. So can we start with you, Philip, and talk just to talk about when your parents started this foundation, and talk a little bit about how the foundation actually came into existence.
Well, thank you for having us, Katana. I'll tell you, the best part of our family is a blonde woman below me. My daughter is an amazing woman who I respect and admire so much. So thank you for having us. Actually, it was my honor to play a small part in the DSO's vast history. In the beginning, I must tell you honestly that I was motivated by stewarding our family's legacy within the organization. But as time went on, I was the one that was enriched by the world-class musicians like Mark and so many others, and the industry-leading professional staff. They literally changed my life. And I'll tell you, culture change takes a lot of time. It's a team sport and it's a contact sport. So giving of yourself to others and having them give to you, and coming together in a one DSO family where everyone's rowing in the same direction, was an incredible experience. And I felt so blessed to be able to just be a small part of that. As it relates to my parents and Amanda's grandparents, what an incredibly rich history they too had. My father's community service goes back to the 1950s, where he served as president of the Jewish Welfare Federation. Most of his philanthropic activity was directed towards the Jewish community, both locally and nationally, and then ultimately throughout the world. He led by being an active listener and arbitrated conflicts by reaching compromise with the parties. This is true in many of the different circles that he led, both religious, as I mentioned, political in the Republican Party as an intermediary and an arbitrator between Israel and the United States, and corporate circles, where he gave not just of himself, but allowed and advocated for others to step forward. I remember vividly him going down to Columbus to visit a young entrepreneur whose name was Leslie Wexner, and suggested to Leslie that, he's made an incredible fortune through the limited brands, and that he needed to think about giving back to the community. And Leslie Wexner, in my mind today, is a world-class philanthropist, giving of himself and his resources to make the world better. So I remember Dad said, it was an honor for him to talk to Leslie about giving philanthropically and turning his life into one of service. So Dad's legacy is vast, and I encourage you to go to his archive site, maxmfisher.org, to learn more and see some videos and audio clips of the incredible impact that he made in the world. I must tell you, it gives me chills to think about how one person, both male and female, can change the world through their hearts. So Mother also was an incredible philanthropist, became more active, if you will, after Father's demise in 2005, and led by example to others in both the Detroit and West Palm Beach community. So impressive. She always said, all giving starts with your heart, and then you use your head. And I think we live that axiom even through today. As it relates to our family's organized giving, it mostly happens through the foundation. Although it's existed for decades, it was endowed in 2007 through his estate administration and continues through today.
Yeah, so I wondered where that, where all of, where it actually began. And then then the family members were all brought in. And I want to go back to the quote. Amanda, I wanted to ask you about that. How has, I was at the memorial for your grandma at the DSO. I mean, what a legacy to, it was so beautiful to have her come back to her home. I mean, it really was. We had you did such a beautiful service, and I was honored to be there. But when you heard this legacy begins in your heart, and then you move to your head, is that something that has stayed with you? What has that meant to you to have your grandmother say that? And then how have you brought that to life in your own work that you do today?
Well, this quote that she said, that all giving starts with your heart and then you use your head, it's one of the pillars of our philanthropy in our family. And for me personally, and growing up, I always envisioned my grandparents of this quote personified. I always thought of my grandfather as the head and my grandmother as the heart. And just what incredible balance that they had, and what an incredible dynamic team that they made. And it just gave them such balance. And I think this is so important in philanthropy, and in all things that we do. And if you're all head and no heart, or no head and all heart, you can't make as big of an impact. Actually, Doug Stewart, who's the executive director at the foundation, and we kind of like to tease that we say all giving starts with your heart, your head, and then you use your hands. And I think that using your hands is a kind of more of a third, fourth generation, also stewarded by the second generation philosophy. It's the moments that we're working, shoulder to shoulder, hand in hand with our grant partners, with our neighbors on the ground, where we make the biggest impact. And then, we also say that you use your head, your heart, your hands, and then you use your ears, because like my dad said, he's always said, we don't work on people, we work with people. And the first thing that we always ask them, and what I've learned from such a young age from my grandparents and my father, is to ask people, what do you need? We're not going to come in and say, this is what we think you need. We listen to them, and we never insert ourselves in that, and we work alongside them. So it's really like a full body, full soul experience in living in that one quote. So I think it really embodies what my grandparents were about.
Oh, thank you. I love that. And Phillip, when I was talking about the shirt sleeves to shirt sleeves in 3 generations, it's profound that was started back hundreds of years ago, and it continues today. And I shared some of those stories. We know the stories of celebrities, and the thing with the NFL is just devastating. They're actually working on that right now to try to fix that. It's all about education. So what are your thoughts for people that may be listening when you hear that? My thought is that the second generation, every generation needs to see themselves as wealth creators rather than just living off that money, but they don't understand it. It's even when you get a lot of money, like a lotto winner, they don't understand first of all, how much that really can generate an income. And when you buy something, it has expenses. So you end up with all the expenses that go along with that. And it's so sad, because the lottery winners usually end up where they were before, but a lot of times in worse shape. So were there some thoughts you'd like to share that came to mind?
I'd love to, Katana. Thank you. I think the proverb suggests that wealth will be lost by the 3rd generation.
Mm-hmm.
And in our case, it's critically important to think about the definition of wealth, which means more to us than just financial gain. It means to make a mark in our community. And I remember Father suggesting in a letter that he sent before his demise to the family, talking about preserving the corpus, working together as a group and not individually, that will bind us together as a family. This philanthropic work that we do is so critically important to not just bring closeness to our family, but to others indeed. In our case, from a financial perspective, although Father and Mother were the wealth creators, we really shifted our portfolios to more of principal preservation after Father's passing. We had a number of core large holdings, equity holdings in companies where I was blessed to be part of the board or chair the board. And we decided to diversify our wealth and focus on wealth preservation, because we knew that the wealth creator was no longer with us. That didn't, however, abdicate us from creating our own wealth. And so we had a vast need to become entrepreneurs, as Amanda is, to not just preserve that wealth, but to grow it. And I'd say that our portfolios today are more conservative from a volatility standpoint than they ever have been historically. and that we're looking for growth through those portfolios in a way that we can pass this wealth on to future generations, not just my children, but our grandchildren and great-grandchildren. And it encourages the third and fourth generation to follow that lead, to understand that this is not an entitlement, but an obligation, an obligation to make sure that they can pass as much wealth on to their children and grandchildren, so that we can perpetuate the family legacy.
Yeah, absolutely. That is just so wonderful. And Amanda, share a little bit about, you're a young woman and you are an entrepreneur. You're working right now. Tell us a little bit about the work that you're doing in the community personally, and then how you've decided to, what nonprofits and philanthropic projects you've decided to take on and why.
So when I, growing up, this idea of giving back was just instilled in me as from such a young age from my parents and from my dad and my grandparents. And so I knew that giving back was something I'd always want to do, either part as my profession or as, an obligation I have to the community. And an honor and a privilege that I have. And so coming out of college, I did a lot of event work benefiting not-for-profits, or as we call them, for impact organizations, because they shouldn't be defined as what they're not. That's why we call them for impact and not non-for-profit. So I did a lot of that work, and I think I had a little bit of trouble separating my heart and my head. And I started to use those skills more in my professional career. I went into real estate. I'm at Max Brook in Birmingham as a broker. I also help to consult for my clients for their renovations, their new builds, design work that they're doing. So it's kind of like a one-stop shop for them. But also, I'm a trustee at the foundation, and that's a huge part of my life. It's a huge part of my passion. And I'm also a board member of City Year Detroit, which is an incredible organization that I'm just so passionate about, and I learned about through my father and through my grandmother, actually. And so, a lot of these things take a lot of time throughout the weeks, but my days are filled with things that I love. So it's just an honor and a privilege to be able to be a part of the foundation. I'm a third generation member. As my dad has said, we have 9 board members on the foundation board. Now 5 of them are comprised of third and fourth generation board members. So our third and fourth generation are actually the largest majority leader on the board now. And I really, I give credit to my father and the second generation for making that such a priority in their leadership, was to really bring us in and have us be a huge voice on this board, and to be involved really at such a young age.
Well, it sounds like the system that you've put in place is really preparing the ability for the board to be passed on to that next generation with continuity, that it will continue. So I wanted to ask, Philip, when you were involved, looks like at the beginning, and I remember I worked with you and Ann and in the Planned Giving committee or advisory council for the Detroit Symphony Orchestra on Planned Giving. And one of the things that you mentioned is that you weren't able to just decide to make, a specific amount of gift from the foundation, that you had to, that everyone could bring ideas and consult. I'd like you to, for families that might have some money, that maybe they have a, something with the community foundation or one of these funds that are charitable funds. Let's say they want to do something with charity. How give us an example of how your family makes decisions with that board, And because it must be challenging sometimes when everyone has their ideas.
It sure is. And I think of it more as an opportunity than a challenge. And I would suggest or recommend that you step back first and not focus on the grantees that you want to fund, but moreover, what values that you have coming into this work, and how do you blend that with various generations of family members? Because in the end, as Amanda said, we are one group with our focus on what's best for the foundation rather than what's best for us individually. And coming into a practice and a collective is critically important to drop your own philanthropic passions and think through what values and align values that you have with your family members. And we know that living within a family can be very challenging. But I think in the case of working through the foundation, it's really been an opportunity to get to know my nephews and nieces. So much incredible work that they're doing, not just personally, but I'm learning so much from them about what's important to them. And I think that's important when we think about how we're going to come together as a collective and give of ourselves through the foundation. So the foundation, we had to develop a strategy that was part of that alignment of values. We had to think about the areas or focus areas that we wanted to focus on. In our case, it's early childhood, Jewish identity, arts and culture, and impact investing. And collectively, the foundation has granted over $100 million in the 15 or so years that we've been together as a group. And none of this would be possible without the incredible staff that we have, led by Doug Stewart on the foundation side and Mark Davidoff on the Fisher Group side, because I truly believe that the family office, the Fisher Group, are partners in the impact that is created through the foundation.
So I'm curious, yeah, and you do have a wonderful staff, and we all appreciate Mark Davidoff. I know him through the work he's done with the Detroit Symphony Orchestra too. What is interesting, and I just want to mention it, is that, you know, not only are you going vertically in the families, but you're going horizontally with brothers and sisters and cousins. And how important is that? To incorporate bring the families together instead of everyone saying, this is mine, this is mine, this is mine, good luck type of thing. It seems like it's made your family even more strong.
So what a great question, Katana. I really believe when you're thinking about family, you literally have to define what family is. Is it just the lineal descendants of Max and Marjorie? Is it the descended spouses, which I get tremendous value and thoughts and strategies from my wife, and I know Amanda through her husband and her cousins through their spouses. And some of us are adopted. And so are they truly family members? And in our case, yes, they are. So we need to be thoughtful about who we're bringing to the table and how we're representing the entire family, which spans now 4 generations and about 55 family members.
Wow.
So that's a great question, Katana.
And just a quick question, does the board rotate too? Because if there's 55 family members, how does someone get selected to be part of the board? And then the roles too. I hope you can share that too.
His father and mother, as you can imagine. Then the second generation are lifetime trustees, quote unquote, where we'll serve for life.
Okay.
In the third and fourth generations, they're going to need to figure out how they're going to pass on succession to other family members. We use a nomination and governance committee, of which the third and fourth generation are majority of that committee too. And we go through an arduous process of understanding through application who wants to be involved, what do they bring to the table, and how they can drop their own philanthropic desires for the work of the group, if you will.
And is there sometimes where there has to be a lot of persuasion with people that may be real passionate about their project?
It's very dynamic. It's very hard to drop what you're feeling when you get to the table. And we think that focusing on what's best for the foundation, we work for the foundation. The foundation doesn't work for us. That it's very difficult to leave that baggage at the door when you walk in the room.
Yeah, I can imagine that. So, it was challenging to try to find a time for maybe, three of us to all get together for this. I'm so thrilled that we have found this time. But I'd like you to share, just because people may be also wondering, how in the world do you do everything you do? Because Amanda, you both have careers, and then you have all your philanthropic work, and then the different boards. Can you just give us an idea of maybe how you have been able to manage everything? And I'd love to hear from both of you, like what a typical week's, looks like, so people can understand what that is.
So I'll go first, Amanda, if that's okay.
Of course.
I really have changed my life from one of wealth creation. When Father passed away, I really think of myself as preserving legacy for my family. And I focus mostly on philanthropic activities now, although I bought and sold companies when I was active in that field. I'm now thinking about philanthropically what model I need to create for my children and grandchildren. And so my week is filled with mostly DSO. We're in a capital campaign, and I'm very proud to chair that campaign to raise permanent capital for our organization. But I have other very important affiliations with City Year and Starfish and other philanthropic organizations. I used to be, and you'll excuse the term, my wife used to call me a board whore because I had so many philanthropic boards that I sat on that I really do believe that narrowing those down where you can concentrate your energy on just a few becomes more impactful than diversifying your energy across many. And so I'm focused on just those few.
Wonderful. That's very good. That's a good point. So Amanda, what would you like to share about your typical week and how life balance is so important for women, and you're a young woman too?
Well, and I think, a little bit different from my dad and the second generation. I think the third and fourth generation, as we talked a little bit about before, we're not resting on what the second generation and first generation is so generously given us. We're working really hard to create that for our kids and our grandkids and future generations going forward. So I've really learned how to have this work life balance. I think it's taken me a little while to figure it out. And I always set aside, a certain amount of hours for work. And, because I am so involved in the foundation, I'm a trustee. I'm on the Impact Investing Committee. I'm on the Early Education Development Committee. I'm also on the Nominating and Governance Committee, and I'm chair of Legacy at the foundation. So you can imagine that's just within the foundation. And then of all the boards that I sit on, a week in my life is always different. Every day is different. And, so I always have peppered in, board meetings or discussions that, I feel lucky that these are my passions. And I think my dad has really helped me with that work-life balance, because he's always taught me that it is really important to learn how to say no. That if we're stretched too thin and we don't bring all of ourselves to something, no matter what it is that we're doing, whether it's work or giving within the community, we're not going to have as much of an impact. So I've learned, like he said, to be able to tailor my life and my day to give my time to the things that I love the most, which are my work, my philanthropic organizations and desires and passions, and my family and my friends. So, and I'm kind of in this really cool place where my parents and my family, yes, they're my family. Yes, they're my parents, but they're also our friends. And we're just in that great part of life where like we want to all hang out together and be together and be friends. And I just feel really lucky. So that's something that's really important to us, my husband and I. And that's that's what a week is for us.
Oh, yeah, that sounds great. I'm so glad you mentioned the idea about balance. So, we're coming to the end of the show. Phillip, I mentioned Mission Throttle. I don't totally understand what that is. I would like you to share with our audience the idea of Mission Throttle. Is that something separate you created, and I guess what the mission is for that organization?
Yeah, and thank you, Katana. Mission Throttle was formed in 2009. I did a lot of soul searching after my father passed. We had worked together for 25 years. So I wanted to understand what my life work was going to be. And I realized that I'm a capitalist. And I love the capitalistic system from an investment and capital standpoint. We have 45 different asset classes that you can diversify risk into, but I had a deep feeling and passion for philanthropy. And I realized that in philanthropy, we had one asset class, and it was called a grant or a contribution. And it created 100% loss of capital. Now, that's not a bad thing when you think of the social impact, but I thought that it would be interesting to form a firm that was focused on driving capitalism into philanthropy from a capital standpoint. We believe that to solve our nation's social needs, it would take about $3 trillion annually. Giving USA in 2020 showed that there was $475 billion given in contributions, 71% of which was by individuals, 15% by foundations, and 5% by corporations. When you think about the power of your audience, you think about what that means as far as donative capital, but it creates a philanthropic gap between 3 trillion, which is the needs, and 475 billion, which is the sources. And to fill that capital gap or philanthropic gap, we're trying to change the culture of wealth creators and individuals to think about investing in philanthropy through concessionary loans, equity into social enterprises, and create an opportunity for impact investing, which has grown and burgeoned over the last 2 decades through ESG and other forms, where people now want to align their investments with their values.
Yeah.
And so it's not just about financial first, it's about a combination between financial and social returns.
Oh, very, very powerful. And there's just been so much wisdom given generously from the two of you. You're such great spokespersons for the work that you're doing and for community. And Amanda, I am just blown away by your composure and just your wisdom. And I want to thank you. You're a great role model for all the young people watching this program. So I want to thank you.
Thank you. I had amazing women as role models for myself, my mother and my grandmother. So I've had wonderful women in my life, and so it's important.
Yeah, and you'll step into those shoes soon enough. So, you will be. So I just want to share one last thing here. We surveyed when people go into the Smart Women's Academy at the nonprofit at Smart Women's Empowerment, the first thing they can do is take this course I teach. It's my coaching program. I made it free so everyone can take it, called Unlock Your Financial Power. And we asked them to tell us about them. And one of the questions we asked was, what are your financial goals? And they could pick more than one. And so number one was the biggest, 80% said, create more ease and joy in my life. The second was retire with enough. That was 74%. And the next one was about 55%, learn how to earn more. And then the last one blew me away. It was over 50% said, give back and share my wealth. And when I worked at La Casa, for example, it's a shelter for women, in teaching this work, they also said one of the most important things to them was being able to give back. But when I asked them what happens when they get money, they try to get rid of it. And when I asked them deeper, why is that? Because they associate pain with it. So pretty powerful stuff. So this idea of giving back and sharing their wealth, along with these others. So, just based on this information and the women who are listening, what kind of advice can you give women about this idea of pursuing your dreams and leaving a legacy?
Well, so I'd say the old adage is really true, that if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life. And time is so precious. And as we said before, to learn how to say no, to not waste your time doing things that don't move you, that don't drive you. Learn how to save and the basics of finances. I mean, I think we underestimate, even in school. I think they're doing a better job of teaching, the future generations of how to preserve wealth, what a bank account is, what a savings account is, what's a 401k, what's an IRA. All of those things. I think they're doing a better job, but it's so important to take ownership over that and use your power to learn about things like that. And I think there's always going to be bumps in the road, and everybody's experienced them. But I always think of, falling is not the failure. It's how you pick yourself up and how you learn from those things. Mm-hmm. And when we're gone, the only thing that keeps us alive is our legacy. This is our mark on the earth. Mm-hmm. And so sometimes we have to look at the legacy that we've been left, like I have with my grandparents and my parents, and use that to look forward and to move forward. And so I always think when I look back on my life, hopefully at a very old age, that I can, think about what I've accomplished, and not in terms of what's on my resume, or it's more about the impact that I've been able to make, a small impact that I'll be able to make on this world that is preserving the legacy of my parents and my grandparents. Yeah. And hopefully to pass that on to my grandchildren and my children and generations to come.
And I'm sure you will. I'm sure you will. So I just want to thank both of you for taking your time and being so generous with it today. And I just appreciate it so much for you to be here.
Thank you so much for having us.
Absolutely. So, and I want to thank everyone for joining us today. In 2 weeks, we're going to be interviewing. We always do a theme. So this month's theme was legacy. And if you want to get on our mailing list, so you'll get the newsletter, you'll know who our guests are. And as soon as the shows are done, you'll receive the interviews and be able to access all the resources. You can go to, like the Smart Women's Academy, you can go to joinsmartwomen.com, and you will be brought into our fold, and then we'll stay in touch with you. So in 2 weeks, we're going to interview the founder and CEO of AgeWave, Ken Dykewald, and we're going to be talking about, he just wrote his memoir, Radical Curiosity, and he's got a great chapter on legacy. So we're going to be talking about legacy and a lot of other things with him. So you don't want to miss it. So until then, go out and live with more purpose, more passion, and prosperity.
Thank you for joining us here at Smart Women Talk Radio, a place to learn, prosper, and grow. Tune in again next week for another exciting episode of Smart Women on the CTR Network. And remember to live with purpose, passion, and prosperity.